Welcome to It's All About the Questions, where learning to ask the right questions can help you achieve lifelong success. Now, here to help you ask all the right questions is award-winning author, international speaker, and business strategist, Laura Stewart.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. It is so great to be back here in Vero Beach, Florida, after evacuating to Marietta, Georgia, to my awesome cousin's house. Thanks so much, Teresa and Michael and Melissa and Megan and Stephen, and meeting baby Owen for the first time. Mom and I really appreciated being able to have a safe place to go, even if Irma did follow us from Florida to Georgia. We are safe and sound. So many are not here in Florida and Houston in the Caribbean. So I just ask everybody to hold everybody in your thoughts and your prayers. And if there's anything you can do to help, whether it's volunteering or giving, it would be a really great thing to help somebody out. I'm here helping out by being here on the radio and introducing you to some amazing people. So many businesses were hurt by this storm, and their belief systems were rocked pretty hard as to whether they could step back up and do what they need to build their businesses back up. I know that evacuating for this hurricane, and even since the Hurricane Matthew 11 months ago and the multiple falls I took, my belief system got shattered. And it's been a journey to understand what my beliefs are. And I'm not just talking about faith here. I'm talking about any belief you have, any limiting belief, any belief at all, to rethink them and go, where did that come from? And along that journey, a good friend, Ursula Mentjes, and I reconnected, and she has a new book that just released called The Belief Zone, a blueprint to make more money, give back to the organizations you care about, and live an authentic life. And she asked me to pre-read the book before it came out, and it blew my mind. It really has helped me kind of ground again and examine and ask myself some questions that I wasn't asking, that I didn't want to ask before, but because she posed them in her book, it made me start rethinking everything. Ursula is the founder of Sales Coach Now, as well as a sales expert, inspirational speaker, certified sales coach. She uses NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, to help her clients double and triple their sales. She was responsible for increasing sales in one company by 90% in 1 year, which brought it to an annual run rate of $20 million. She really knows what she's doing, and beyond that, she is one of those special people. We met in an author conference once before, so please welcome Ursula Mentjes to the show. Ursula, thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, Laura, I'm so excited to be here with you today and with all your listeners. Thank you for having me. You know,
I was really excited the first time I ever met you at Author 101 University, which, by the way, is going to be here. It's going to be in Orlando, Florida in October, which is really exciting. I won't have to travel to see all my friends at the event. I don't have to go to California or Vegas. But your books have been so amazing. I mean, your first one, Selling with Intention, I read, and then One Great Goal. Both of them are impactful because of the way you use questions. You make it so easy for somebody to go, oh, I don't want to answer this question, but I must, because of the way you pose it. Where do you get the ideas for your books?
Great question. And thank you, by the way. And it is all about the questions. I love what you're up to and your books and your show and asking us to ask. So all books to me are divine downloads. I believe they come from God, source, whatever you call, your higher spirit, that higher realm, because I don't sit around and just think, oh, I'm just going to write this new book and I'm going to write it down. No, it's like a nagging, well, I shouldn't say nagging because that sounds negative, but it's like a little fly buzzing around my head, and I'll ignore it for a while, but the idea will keep coming back and showing up. And I don't ever feel like I have a choice about writing a book. It's like it comes into my head, and I need to write it down, and it needs to come through. And every single one of my books has been that way. Just that feeling of, okay, here's you have to get out, because I know it's not about me. It's to help people. It's to help everyone that reads the book.
You've studied neuro-linguistic programming. You run these amazing sales camps. Is that where this whole idea for the Belief Zone came from?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the belief zone, interesting you would talk about, the hurricanes I've been thinking about and praying, and the fires and just all of the things that are happening right now in the world. And, the belief zone came through my own challenge and my husband's challenge of surviving the Great Recession in California. And while there weren't, fires or hurricanes, I was in the Inland Empire, and real estate-wise, the Inland Empire in California was right behind Detroit. And we saw real estate values drop by 50% in literally like a day. That's what it felt like. And my husband was in real estate at the time. We owned a lot of real estate. I had my own business. I watched everybody I knew either lose a home, lose a job, lose a business, lose 2 businesses, lose 10 homes. I had a friend who lost 20 of her rental properties. And, there was a lot of loss. Now, I mean, thankfully, it's not comparable in the sense of the destruction of the hurricanes and rebuilding. Many people just left. And my husband and I, we watched our own losses happen. And the belief zone was born out of that because it shook me to the core. It got me on my knees. And I had to say, what do I really believe about creating things and creating the life that I really want? And the lesson was that sometimes everything comes crashing down first and creates the space to build the life that's waiting for you. And that was a hard lesson because I went kicking and screaming, losing, over $1 million and our retirement accounts and pretty much everything. And within 4 years, we had moved back to Minnesota, which is exactly where we were supposed to be, where we are supposed to be. We had our son, Luca. We've been blessed beyond belief. We've rebuilt our retirement accounts. We own real estate again. We rebounded so quickly. And it was like, you know what? I want other people to experience that by shifting your beliefs and how you're showing up in the world and by getting back on your path and your purpose, everything can change very quickly.
There are so many people all over the world at any one given time, but I'm seeing it more and more now with, the terrorist attacks, with these hurricanes, the fires, where they're at that bottom. They've lost everything, and they're suffering post-traumatic stress from all of it. What do you say to them to help them start to even see something beyond the bottom?
Laura, that is such a tough question because this is all about the questions, and I don't want to believe or make anyone believe that I have all the answers. I guess, I would say start where you are. You can only start where you are. And today, try to find one thing, if you can, one thing that you're grateful for. I was just at a conference over the weekend, and I was introduced to an organization called Thistle Farms, and they're involved with human trafficking. And specifically in some of the worst areas, third world countries, where many, many women and children and some, boys and men are being taken into, this world of human trafficking because they have nothing. And yet this woman went in and she started a social enterprise so that women could come together and, start to make money again and start to make their way out. And she's brought so much hope to them, and they're moving out of their own way. And so I think it's up to all of us. I mean, one of the reasons I wrote The Belief Zone, is so yes, people can make their way back, make money, but give back to the organizations you care about, like a Thistle Farms or like other nonprofits or social enterprises that are making this great difference, because that's how we help people get 1 ounce of hope to move out of that place where they are right now. Because if you can take one step and think of one thing to be grateful for today, maybe it's just that you're still on the planet, then the next piece of hope will show up, and then the next piece of hope. And as long as you keep walking in that hope, the next thing will show up for you. And that can be the hardest thing, but I know it's possible. Anywhere in the world, I know it's possible.
You just have to find one thing, whether there's a flower growing out of the ground.
Yes.
And everything else is gone, or one room in your house, or your favorite photo, whatever it may be, or like you said, that you're on the planet. That's a beautiful way of thinking about it. I'm trying to figure out the best way to formulate the next question that I have. I think it's important to make sure we're all on the same page with the whole idea of belief. So can you define for us, for this conversation, what is a belief?
Sure. The best, I've heard many different definitions, but one of the ways that I've heard it said is that a belief is just a thought that you think is true, and you keep pointing at that thought, believing in its truth. And I like to separate your religious beliefs or your spiritual beliefs from things that you believe about yourself or about your business or about your life. There are similarities, but for the purposes of what we're talking about today. So if a belief is a thought that you think is true, that means you can change it because we can change a thought, right? So if we can change a thought, we can change our beliefs. An example is, during what I call the Great Recession that happened across the world, but happened to be in California at the time, there were people that some of my clients who thought, wow, this is the worst time to be in business. This is the worst time because I'm going to lose everything. And they did. And there were other people, even in construction companies, who I watched, and some of my clients who said, maybe this is the best time to be in business. Maybe I get to redesign and create a new story about my business, even though I've laid off, almost all of my staff, and I'm kind of starting from scratch. Maybe this is a time to redesign my business and my life. And guess what? They were right. So a belief is just a thought that you think is true, and you keep pointing at it. And I heard an interesting statistic. I've heard this, and you've probably heard this too, that we have anywhere from 60,000 to 120 thoughts that go through our mind every day. Most of those thoughts are things we believe, and we're looking at, and we're wondering about. And the flip side of that, though, Laura, is that most of those thoughts, 60,000 to 120,000 thoughts, women tend to be toward 120,000, most of those thoughts are the same. They're the same thoughts that you had yesterday and the day before that. And often they're the same beliefs that you've had for the last year or 5 years. And so people wonder, why is my life the same? Why is my business staying in the same place? Well, what are you thinking about? What are those same thoughts that you're habitually thinking about every single day? Because that will give you a big clue into what's showing up in your life.
Oh,
and
that's
the great
perfect.
news is you can change it.
We're going to go into our first commercial break, so everybody thinking about that. What are the thoughts that you've been thinking every single day? And are they really true? We'll be right back with more from Ursula Mentjes. Ursula, before the break, we talked about defining a belief, and you said to look at what thoughts people are having every day, my listeners and myself and stuff. So what questions should someone ask themselves to help them determine what their belief is around an issue? Is there something that can help them do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, first of all, if you're having an issue, write it down. I'm a huge believer in writing it down so you can really look at it and visualize it and see what that issue is. So, for example, if you own a business, you might say, gosh, the thought you might be having is, I wonder why my business isn't doing well. And you keep having that thought, which pretty soon can turn into a belief of, wow, my business isn't doing very well. And the next thing you know, you're telling everybody, my business isn't doing very well. So it goes from, this question, and then you can move into creating an actual belief. So when you notice the questions, write them down before they turn into thoughts that become beliefs, because then you'll start to live into that belief. So you might say, okay, I wonder why my business isn't doing well. Well, write down some reasons. Often we are our best coaches, and when you ask yourself questions, a lot of times you can get to the answer pretty quickly. So you might say, I wonder why my business isn't doing well. Well, I haven't been doing the same marketing that I did 3 months ago when my business was doing really well, or I haven't been making my follow-up calls, or fill in the blank. And the answers start to show up. So, just be in that question, but write the answers down. My guess is that the answers are there. And then, as one of my good friends, Brian Smith, always says, you can pivot. You can move into what you really want.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Before the break, you had also mentioned about the business owners who were thinking that, the recession, it's crappy, business isn't going to be good, and the other ones that took the opportunity to change it. Peter Diamandis wrote a book called Abundance that I happened to read when all of that was going on, and it completely shifted my thinking because his book talked about how much abundance is actually happening, but there are shifts. There's pivoting happening in industries. They have to change. They have to morph. They have to maybe step into a slightly different direction in order to take things to the next level, because that's where the world is going. You can't stay where you were at, which feeds with that whole idea of beliefs that you were just talking about. What if, though, when somebody is writing down their list of why my business isn't doing well. And it becomes a litany of, well, my staff is horrible, everybody's out to get me. Or you see a lot of those negative, limiting kind of thoughts. What does somebody do then?
Ooh, those are my favorites, Laura. So this is a lot of the time I spend with my clients. We're looking at their limiting beliefs that have shown up. And again, an easy way to shift a limiting belief is to write it down. So you might say, the belief might be, everybody is out to get me. And so, that's why my business isn't doing well. So that belief ends up becoming this story. So let's say you write that belief down. Everybody is out to get me, okay? Then I challenge my clients and I say, ask this question. What are 5 things? Let's do 5 today. Sometimes I say 3, but I feel like you want more. So what are 5 things that are not true about that belief that everyone is out to get me? Well, my good friend Laura Stewart is not out to get me. Like, she's always supportive. Oh, and look, I have this great group of entrepreneurs that I'm in a mastermind with. They're not out to get me. They're always supporting me. And wow, I actually have 100 clients and they really appreciate they're not out to get me. And you start to realize that somehow you took on this belief that's not true. And the second you start to ask these questions and answer them, the belief starts to dissolve away. Now, once it starts to dissolve, the next step is to create what I call an achieving belief. So what's a belief that you'd rather have outside of everyone's out to get me? It could be everyone supports me and the growth of my business, period. And then the next step would be to write that belief. What if you wrote that belief down, that new belief, every day, 20 times a day for 30 days? I guarantee you it will start to get into your subconscious and things around you will start to shift.
Well, it sounds like in order to, and you lay this out so beautifully in your book, The Belief Zone. I love the way you laid it out. It was just so simple in its clarity, which I know is one of the things, is clarity. That's one of the things you talk about in the book. But so the act of writing it down, after you've done these 5 things that are not true about the thoughts, you then look at it and create an opposite, almost like an opposite of it. Give me an achieving belief, something that is truth, that you know is truth. And then you say write it down every day. In just a notebook? Should they put it on Post-it notes around their office, around their house, wherever they are, reminders on their phone? How do you stop from slipping back and maybe not writing it down that next day? Because it's a hard pattern. You're in like a rut. Yeah,
for sure. Yep, for sure. And I guarantee it will flip back to you. You will be confronted with opportunities of your old beliefs for it to show up again. So having it on Post-it notes is great. Like, anywhere you're going to see it is fantastic. I would write it in a journal so that you can see every day that you've written it actually for 30 days. If you do that, you will be in a different place at the end of that 30 days. Because what will happen, Laura, is that opportunities and examples of people supporting you will start to show up around you. You just have to try. It's like the idea of, I remember in California, I got a black BMW one time and I thought, no one has this car. Well, it turned out everybody else on the freeway has this car, but I didn't see it until I had one, right? So you won't see the opportunities to expand in this new belief until you start to write it down every day. And then you'll start to see it all around. You say, oh, you know what? That person supports me and that person supports me and the universe supports me. God supports me. I mean, it just goes on and on.
When somebody slips back into... They start back into their limiting belief because maybe things are coming up or it's a struggle. What piece of advice do you have for them to remember? I know it's, you have your calendar so that you can see. So like maybe a calendar book is the way to go, something that's dated so that you literally know you've done it every day on a date for 30 days. But I know that a lot of my listeners have that rut thing and it's so easy to get stuck, especially the first time you're changing a limiting belief.
For sure. Oh, it's a great question. So part of it is to give yourself some grace, because this is not a flogging tool. I say that to my clients all the time. Like, this is not an opportunity to beat yourself up if that old belief comes back. So what I want people to do is to recognize that this is like anything else you've ever learned to do. It didn't happen overnight, whether it was riding a bike, you fell down a few times, whether, like if you launched a business, it took some time. Like it's a skill that you're developing, because once you get this skill, you'll be able to use it over and over again. So the skill is just like, if you're lifting a weight and building a muscle, when you see that negative thought coming back or that limiting belief, just notice it. Acknowledge it. Say, oh, hello, limiting belief. Make a joke about it. Just see that it's there, and then let it pass on by. I don't want you to wrestle with it. I don't want you to resist it. Just say, oh, hey, there's my limiting belief again. Isn't that interesting? But what I really want to believe is this, that the support is all around me at all times, that the universe supports me, everybody supports me, and then you start to strengthen that new belief. So just look at it as an opportunity to build that muscle.
I like that, an opportunity to build that muscle. In your book, you mentioned...
That takes the pressure off. Yeah, so go ahead.
No, go ahead. Continue your thought.
Yeah, just that it takes the pressure off of feeling like you can never have a negative thought again, because it's going to happen. You're human. We all have egos. We're going to fall into that space. And just acknowledge it. It's an opportunity to build the muscle. I laugh at them now. I go, oh my gosh, wow, was I really thinking that? That's amazing. Isn't that interesting? So that's the other thing you could say, oh, isn't that interesting? So you're sort of neutral about it, but you're not attaching feeling or emotion to it.
I love that. We're going to go into the national news break, and I'd like my listeners to think about this. As you are listening to the show, think about what thoughts, how do you react to yourself when you have a negative thought? Think about that, and we'll be right back with more from Ursula Mentjes talking about her new book, The Belief Zone.
Welcome to It's All About the Questions, where learning to ask the right questions can help you achieve lifelong success. Now, here to help you ask all the right questions is award-winning author, international speaker, and business strategist, Laura Stewart.
For those of you listening to us live on the air here on iHeartRadio, welcome back to the show. And for those of you on the podcast, this was instantaneous. You didn't have to listen to the national news. I am here with Ursula Mentjes, author of The Belief Zone, a blueprint to make more money, give back to the organizations you care about, and live an authentic life. It just launched. It is an amazing book. I read an advance copy of it. And as I was going through all the Hurricane Irma evacuations and return, I found a lot of my beliefs being challenged. And it was great to have this book and the thoughts from it there to assist with that process. So Ursula, before the news break, we were talking about how somebody can help themselves when they maybe backslide a little bit and those negative thoughts come in. In your book, you say that expectation is like a muscle. And I'd like to go into that kind of concept because it fits with that backsliding, that going back into the rut thing. Let's define expectation and then go further into that and how expectation slips into belief.
Sure. So we begin with our thoughts, and then we stir in some emotion, which then leads to our beliefs. But the bigger question is, after we think we believe something, do we move into expectation? One of my good friends, Greg Kuhn, is the author of Why Quantum Physicists Do Not Fail. He talks a lot about the power of expectation from a quantum level. And I'm not going to talk about all the quantum physics behind it. You can read about it in The Belief Zone if you look at it, or look it up in other places, the quantum science behind it. But the idea is that there's a difference between just believing something, thinking, oh yeah, I believe in that, and moving into expectation. So let me give you an example. Maybe you believed in, Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or some other childhood mythical character. I did. I believed in all of that.
I still do.
I know. I hope there's no kids in the car. If there are, this really happened. They're still out there. So whoever you believed in, and maybe someone at some point told you it wasn't true, but go back. Like when you really, really believed in Santa, and I still love the magic of Santa Claus, I believed that there would be presents under the tree. I believed that, Santa would eat the cookies and drink the milk, and I expected it to happen, and it did. And it's just like in my business, as I've grown it, when I've truly expected things to happen, without a doubt, like I just expected it. It's like an expectation. I just know this is going to happen. It happens. When I believe, but I get stuck in, do I really expect that to happen? Or am I in a little bit or a lot of doubt about whether or not something is possible. Like I can believe it at some level, but still not expect it. And that's where we start to acknowledge and notice our limiting beliefs. So, if you want to double your sales, a lot of our clients, we work with them to help them do that, but they don't expect it. They might believe it. They'll say, Ursula, I believe I can do it. But yet, even as they're saying it, I can feel like there's a but behind it. But I'm not sure that I can do it this month, or I'm not sure I have the right team in place, or I'm not sure I have the right products, or I'm not sure that I'm priced correctly. So then all the limiting beliefs start to come out. And that's where you start to see the difference between what I believe and what I expect.
I like that. So what's the difference between what I believe and what I expect? That's a great that is a tweet, everybody. What's the difference between what you believe and what you expect? Since I can't tweet and do this show, I need to focus on my guest. Please tweet that out. What is the difference between what I believe and what I expect? Okay, so once somebody's sort of figured that out, then what?
So then so once you're in expectation of something, it just starts to happen. And so notice right now, Laura, and all the listeners, notice what it feels like to believe something, but to still be in a little bit of question about it. Yeah, I believe it, but there's that. But then think about what it feels like when you expect something to happen. When you go to, for example, a coffee shop, you expect them to have coffee, and guess what they do? It's a different feeling. It's just you expect it to happen. And in business is a great example. So we'll see our clients. Some clients will, let's say they're at $10,000 a month. They want to get to $20,000 a month. They believe it for a while, and then they start to expect it, and then it happens. But once they hit 20,000, they often can continue to hit 20,000 because it just becomes their expectation. And then they move to another level of sales and monthly revenue, which becomes their next expectation. So it's a knowing. It's like, I just know that's going to happen. And so it is experiential. And the more you start to kind of feel into that and discover what you're expecting, it'll start to happen more and more.
Okay, now let's take that idea a little bit further. Some of my clients that I've worked with, they have some pretty amazing expectations on what can happen, that they can bring their businesses to $10 million in a year when they were at, say, $20,000 a month to start. How do you sort of frame the time frames that may happen, and how do you determine whether an expectation is based in reality as a possibility that could happen or not?
Oh my gosh, that is the $billion question, Laura. I was having that conversation with a client just this morning, and here's the thing. If you want $1 million business, you have to create $1 million projection. You have to create the space for it to even happen. And if it doesn't happen in the time frame that you hoped for, it doesn't mean, it's not about beating yourself up or thinking it's never going to happen. It's about figuring out why it hasn't happened yet. Is it something you really want? Is your business set up correctly? Are you taking all the steps in front of you that you don't want to take? In the belief zone, I talk about moving out of your comfort zone into a new belief zone. And part of that is doing the things that you really don't want to do. Usually, to get to that next level, doubling your sales, growing a seven-figure business, whatever it is, usually there's things that either you haven't been doing or you don't want to do. And it's acknowledging those things and stepping into them. And, you might think you can go from $1,000 a month to $10 million a month. You might think, oh, that would be great. I really want that. Most people aren't willing to do whatever that would take. So then it's like, well, what am I willing to do? I really believe I could go from $1,000 a month to $20,000 a month, and I'm willing to do whatever that's going to take. And then once I get to $20,000, I'm going to go to $40,000, and so on. So part of it's also stair-stepping. I always, share with my clients, I encourage them to think, what's the stretch goal, okay? And it's a stretch, but it's believable for me at some level so that I can actually move from belief to expecting that it will happen. And if it's not believable at any level for you, that's okay. Just pull back a little bit until you get to that point where it's a stretch but still believable so that you can then expect and move into expectation.
That makes so much sense. I was just talking to somebody before the show, And they were like, well, we need to get salespeople in because I'm getting older and I just can't do all the sales. I don't know why we can't get salespeople. And I'm like, well, you need to be willing to mentor that person and do certain things. And they're like, no, I'm not willing to do that.
Right.
Which
exactly.
If you're not willing to do what it takes to get to your goal, then maybe it's the wrong goal for you, right?
Maybe it's not exactly, and maybe it's not what you really want.
It's a very interesting thing. On page 53 of your book, this really stood out for me. I mean, the fact that I'm giving everybody a page number in this book, there are so many things that stood out. But you mentioned that forgiveness is needed to change your beliefs. And, you specifically mentioned about sales or money, but there's a bigger theme to it. Why is forgiveness needed?
Listen to me, I can't even, so forgiveness is a big topic for a lot of people. And, I just want to be careful with the words I use and how I explain it, because I think forgiveness is a very personal journey. And so I'll share my own story. A lot of times it's personal. It's forgiving yourself. And one of the things that my husband and I went through after the Great Recession is forgiving ourselves for buying so much real estate, forgiving ourselves for taking so many risks that, put us in the situation we were in, because we had a lot of energy and, we could play the blame game. Well, you wanted to do this. Well, you wanted to, at some point we were looked at each other and, we've been together 21 years now. And we thought, well, that's definitely not getting us where we want to go. We need to forgive ourselves and each other for making the decisions that we made. Because as my mom told me, my mom, who's, such a great supporter and so wise, she said, she says, but look at all the things you two learned. And it was when that bulb went on for me, I went, oh my gosh, no one can take that experience away. Not only did I forgive myself, I realized the breadth of knowledge that I have. And it was my mom was really one of the inspirations that made me say, I need to write this book, because it's, we're going to fall down. Things are going to come apart. Everything's not going to go well. Forgive yourself. Forgive the people around you. Forgive your family. Forgive your childhood. Forgive all of it. It doesn't mean you forget. Let it go, because that energy is not going to take you where you want to go.
I'm just sitting here and letting that wash over me. Thinking through a number of choices I've made that didn't exactly go the way I'd wanted them to, and I went, oh, I haven't forgiven myself for that one yet. Okay, got it.
Well, and Laura, it's taken us to where we are today.
Yeah. It is very, very true. And all of the choices that we've made, that I've made, have me on the air today, being able to bring these ideas and people like yourself to my listeners. So I'm very grateful for that. All right, we're going to go into our last commercial break, and we're going to be back with more from Ursula Mentjes, author of The Belief Zone, a blueprint to make more money, give back to the organization you care about, and live an authentic life. By the way, inside the book includes her popular One Great Goal process. I love this. This book is something everybody should be reading. We'll be right back with more from Ursula Mentjes. Ursula, one of the things we've talked about during the show today, amongst many, many things, was the idea of writing down the thoughts that you have every day and then looking at them and picking a thought that you're going to shift and change. Do you have a method or a way for somebody to decide which thought to start with?
Sure. Yeah. And they definitely don't have to write down every thought, because that might take some time. I would notice the thoughts that keep coming up that are stopping you from getting where you want to go. So, for example, if you think of a goal that you want to achieve, and you'll notice it'll spin through your mind. You'll think, oh, I really want to do that. For example, we'll use an easy one. Maybe you want to run a marathon. That's been a dream. It's on your bucket list. Awesome. And yet, every time you think of that goal, there's a part of you, the other half of you, that says, this little voice, well, you could never do that.
So you go and eat a cookie.
You're out of shape. Yes. So notice that thought. Notice the ones the negative, and then say, what's not true about the thought that I could not finish a marathon, or I can't train for a marathon, and then take yourself through the exercise.
So looking at the bigger goal, which is your great goal process, pick one thing something that keeps repeating over and over. So it almost like the top of mind one, the one that's really just constant in your mind, and start there.
Absolutely. And yeah, so using the one great goal as an example. So let's say you know what your one great goal is. You want $1 million business. We said that before. So let's say I want a 7-figure business. I want a 7-figure business. And that's my one great goal. And yet my limiting belief is, yeah, but you're only at $20,000 a month. You could never do that. That's not possible. Pick that one. That's an easy way to go, is to think, what is the number one limiting belief I have about achieving my one great goal? Once you shift that one, there might be a few others behind it, so keep working on those. But then you'll notice you'll start to move pretty quickly toward that one great goal.
I'd like that so much. And the way you lay it out in your book, The Belief Zone, a blueprint to make more money, give back to the organizations you care about, and live an authentic life, it didn't feel overwhelming, which so many books that have similar things like this in there, they can be so overwhelming. And the way you lay it out in the book is just start here. Just pick one thing. And I think that is so important. My listeners out there, I get overwhelmed, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed. But if you step back, as Ursula was talking about, take a breath and just pick one thing and say, okay, well, what's not true about it? I think you can really start beginning to shift things, and then use forgiveness if you slip back. It's okay. And then just start from that new place. Ursula, last thought that you'd like to, actually, before we do last thought, my listeners, I've gotten a few texts and some emails from some people while we've been on the show that I check during breaks, and they'd like to know how to reach out to you and possibly get some time with you. How do they do that? And where to get the book?
Awesome. Thank you so much. So a couple places. If you go, the book is on Amazon, so just search for The Belief Zone, and you can attach my name to it, Ursula Mentjes. The Kindle and audio version, as of September 19th, is not out yet, but it's on its way. So you can purchase the hard copy of the book right now, and that's on Amazon. My website is Sales Coach Now. That's sales with an S, salescoachnow.com. You can go there. There's some free gifts and more information about what we're up to. And you can certainly reach out to me directly at Ursula, URSULA, at salescoachnow.com. Or on Facebook as well. I have an author page as well as a personal page. You're welcome to message me there.
And I'll have links to all of that up on the show site. It's allaboutthequestions.com, so people can find that too. You also have an amazing podcast where you interview people. I know you interviewed me, and I'm not saying it's an amazing show just because you interviewed me. It's really an amazing show called Double Your Sales Now, and it's a podcast, and that's available on iTunes and Google and a lot of other places as well. So a last thought. Oh, and by the way, everybody, there are some amazing bonuses if you're buying large quantities of the book, and some different things that Ursula is doing during the launch phase. And if you're listening to this after the launch phase, don't worry, reach out to Ursula. She's got great stuff up on her website. So Ursula at salescoachnow.com. Last thought you'd like to share with my listeners, Ursula?
Sure. And yes, and great point. If you go to thebeliefzone.com, you can find all the gifts there. I forgot to mention that. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Laura, for what you've been doing in the world and for your book and for your show. Last thoughts, just to remember that you're just one thought, one belief away, from what it is you really want. And it truly is right there. So take a moment today to start to think about your goals, your one great goal, what it is you really want, and what are those limiting beliefs that are getting in your way. Dive into that, because just by taking a few steps in that direction, everything will start to shift for you, and you'll move into a new belief zone.
You are one thought away from where you want to be. Is that how you said that?
Yes, and I've heard other people say that. I think it's just a brilliant, brilliant thought. We're all just one thought away from our next thought, which can turn into our new belief and our new expectation.
It sounds so simple when you say it that way. And it really can be, right? Is what you're saying. It can be that simple if we understand that expectation is a muscle and that we can change our beliefs.
And what if, Laura, we said it is that simple? What if it is that simple?
I have goosebumps. we tend to make it very complicated. I mean, that's what your last thought is, that you just sort of implanted into us, that thought that we're making it more complicated than it has to be.
Yes, exactly. It really is that simple. And that's what I see day after day in working with my clients, that they choose that new belief, they move into a new belief zone, and away they go. And anyone could, that's for everybody. Wherever you are in the world, it can work for you too.
And it isn't necessarily instantaneous for some people, because belief is a muscle too. Expectation is a muscle, but belief is a muscle. So we need to exercise these new thoughts.
That's a great point, Laura, because even though it might not feel instant, for some people it can be instantaneous, and they'll start to, it'll shift that fast. I think for others, even if you don't see it, the shift right away, it's not in your physical world immediately. I want you to have hope and a feeling of possibility and knowing and expectation that just by doing this work, you are moving in the right direction. So let that feeling carry you. For most people, it's a sense of peace or a sense of freedom that, yes, I am now moving in the right direction. It is happening, taking on that new belief and that new feeling so that you can start to move.
And it's that whole idea of then writing it down, you're saying, somewhere where you can see that you literally wrote it down every day, whether you write the numbers 1 to 30 on a piece of paper and the date.
Right.
So that it's like, here's September 19th. So if everybody's going through their process and they've picked a thought they want to change and they've written down their new achieving belief, then you write that thought down every day for 30 days in your calendar or your iPhone or whatever it is. And forgive yourself if you forget one day. Just do it the next day and add an extra day. So if you skipped a day for some reason, then add another day at the end. Is that the idea or no?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Exactly. And lots of grace and forgiveness and just keep going with it. And part of it, Laura, we didn't talk about this today, but have some fun. Enjoy this life. We can be so hard on ourselves and so hard about the goals and have I done this. The most important thing you can do is feel good in this process and remember to have some fun, do the things that you enjoy, and just trust that the rest of it is unfolding because you're doing the work.
That's such a great way to end the show.
Perfect.
Have fun, feel good, enjoy the process.
Yes.
This is not meant to be torture. This is meant to be something that lights you up.
Yes. And to be that bright light in the world by doing this process, because you can't help but shine when you're feeling good, and others will start to follow you.
I love that. Everybody, I highly recommend the book by Ursula Mentjes, The Belief Zone, A Blueprint to Make More Money, Give Back to the Organizations You Care About, and Live an Authentic Life. Available everywhere books are sold. And remember, everybody, the right questions truly can change your life. Have a great day, everyone.
You've been listening to It's All About the Questions, starring Laura Stewart. Connect with Laura at it'sallaboutthequestions.com and download a free workbook that will help you ask better questions starting today.